Hello, 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 and welcome to my channel. Today I have a true crime video for you. I post a regular video every 2 weeks and a true crime one every Saturday. So if you like that type of content, then please, please, please subscribe. I really appreciate it. So today I have a true crime video for you. And the case of today is a wild one. Let me tell you, a lot of things happen, and a lot of people are involved in this case, in this video, because there are multiple cases related to one thing, and I was inspired by this because I watched a Netflix show. Yes, there I am again. I watched a show, not a documentary, but a show on Netflix called Androcide, and it's fiction, it's fun, but it was inspired by a cult called the Order of the Solar Temple. So the story of the show was, it's not like facts and truly based on it, but it was inspired by this story of the cult. So, but I realized that after I watched the show, I watched it and then I did some research, hey, is this based on a true story or not? And I found out that it was about this cult. So I was like, hey, okay, let me just do some research. And yeah, this is what I found out, and I was like, oh, wow, mind blown, the things that happened here. So I thought, yeah, okay, I need to make a video about that. So, as I said, this is about a cult, and they called themselves the Order of the Solar Temple. So, let me tell you that on October 3rd in 1949, 5 bodies were found after firefighters respond to a house fire in Canada. Inside the house, they found the bodies of a couple, Jerry Ganoid and Colette Ganoid. They were man and wife, husband and wife, husband and you know the deal. While they went through the house, they found the bodies of the Dutois family in a storage area. Mother Nikki, father Antonio, he was also called Tony, and at place is, so I'm sorry, but in Switzerland, it turns out these were all members of the Order of the Solar Temple. The next day, on October 5th, 25 bodies were found in Selvan, Switzerland, all members of the order, and amongst them were the two founders of the cult. These two founders were Joseph de Mambro and Luc Jouret. Joseph de Mambro was born on August 19th in 1924 in Pont-Saint-Esprit, France. His parents were Italian and he grew up in a Catholic family, but he became interested in occult theosophy. I'm not sure if I'm saying these things right. Rosicrucian beliefs, so don't pin me on this, but if I'm pronouncing it right or wrong, I'm sorry. When he was younger, he used to work as a watchmaker. He also tried hypnosis and magnetism, and he claimed that he had a special mystical powers, and these powers helped him gain control over his followers later on. Before starting the Solar Temple group, de Mambro joined different mystical and secret group societies. One of these was a morgue, or AMORC, a modern Rosicrucian group. I'm not sure if I say that right. I'm not really into those things, so I'm not sure. But so being a part of this society taught him how to organize groups, perform rituals, and use special secret language. But later on, he was kicked out or left himself, that is not sure, out of this AMORC because of problems with disagreement. In the early 1980s, de Mambro moved to Switzerland, where he co-founded the Order of the Solar Temple with Luc Jouret. De Mambro took on the role of the inner leader, like the mastermind who shaped doctrine. He controlled the inner circle, and he designed the group's rituals. He referred to himself as a spiritual guide and claimed to be in contact with ascended masters and higher cosmic entities. De Mambro's influence was built on strict control, mystification, and fear. He presented himself as being the chosen one, and his teachings blended. He convinced members that the earth was corrupt and doomed, and that death was a necessary passage to a higher dimension. Many followers genuinely believed that dying in a ritual would ensure spiritual salvation. Though he preached purity and sacrifice, de Mambro Dominic Balaton and claimed they were of divine origin. He wanted other members to worship his daughter as the embodiment of the cosmic Christ. He also had a son called Eli, and he was born in 1969, so he had him before. Eli was the child of Joseph and his second wife, Jocelyn Duplessis. In 1986, Joseph legally recognized Eli as his biological son at the French consulate. Over time, he became increasingly paranoid, especially towards ex-members of the cult or critics. Joseph Mambro met Jouret in the early 1980s in Switzerland, and they met because they were both involved in spiritual and mystical groups. Mambro had experience with societies and was creating his own secret spiritual teachings based on rituals and stories about the Templars. Jouret was a confident speaker and a homeopathic doctor. He became known for his talks about spirituality, health, and changing the world. Their meeting was not by chance. They both shared a strong interest in the secret spiritual traditions and believed that a big spiritual crisis was coming. Mambro wanted someone as energetic to become the public leader of his ideas, his society. Jouret was interested in the organized spiritual system that Mambro had created, so decided to work together, with Mambro leading from behind the scenes and Jouret attracting and inspiring people like he was the spokesman. This partnership led to the creation of the Order of the Solar Temple in 1984. Luc Jouret was born on October 18th in 1947 in Kikwit, which was then called Belgian Congo, and this is now the Democratic Republic of Congo. His parents were Belgian, and he grew up mostly in Belgium and followed a regular school path before becoming interested in different beliefs. Jouret studied medicine at the Free University of Brussels and became a doctor. Later, he focused on homeopathy, a type of alternative medicine, which led him to explore spiritual teachings. In the late 1970s and 80s, Jouret became a popular speaker on the New Age circuit in Europe and Canada. He gave passionate lectures on spiritual energy, esoteric healing, and the coming of a new world order. His charm, intelligence, and confident delivery made him highly persuasive. And that's the thing, right? Like, those people can talk and talk, and all those whose followers are like, whoa, yeah, right. Even if they are saying that blue is yellow, they can talk and come up with things that make you think, yes, this yellow is blue, you know? So, yeah, he attracted a loyal following and was seen by many as a modern day guru, someone who could blend science, spirituality, and prophecy. Jouret served as the outer leader, the one who gave seminars, recruited members, and gave meaning to the group's philosophy. He claimed to be a reincarnation of a Templar knight and often referenced ancient wisdom in his talks. He presented the order as a spiritual elite destined to survive the world's collapse and ascend to a higher plan. He was persuasive with wealthy, educated, and idealistic followers, especially in France, Switzerland, and Canada. In the early 1990s, problems started for Luc Jouret. People began to look closely at him, especially after he was arrested in Quebec in 1993 for buying guns illegally. Some followers started to doubt his teachings and left the order. Behind the scenes, Jouret had a hard time. He felt sad, he lost hope, and he was dealing with depression. He was afraid that his plans were falling apart. The Mambro became more paranoid than before and started pushing for a final event, a ritual to move to a higher spiritual level. Jouret was unsure at first, but he agreed. Maybe because he believed that it was the right thing, or because he just couldn't say no to the Mambro's power. On October 5th, 1994, Luc Jouret was found dead alongside Joseph de Mambro and 23 others in a chalet in Grand-sur-Saône, Switzerland. So, as I said before, it all started with the house fire on October 3rd, where 5 bodies were found. Antonio and Nikki Dutoit were former members of the Order of the Solar Temple. They had distanced themselves from the group and were living quietly in Canada, trying to move on. Before they left, Antonio found out that many of the group's supposed spiritual events, like the appearance of cosmic masters, were fake, created with holograms and light his son, called Christopher Emmanuel. The Mambro was very angry about this because the baby's name was similar to his own daughter's name, Emmanuel. He was also upset because he had not been consulted in naming the child. The Mambro saw this as a challenge to his power and control over the group. He believed the baby of the Tutuas was a danger to the group's spiritual mission. He even said that the baby was the Antichrist, sent to ruin their divine plan. In his twisted way of thinking, the baby had to be killed. And sadly, that is what happened. The Mambro is said to have ordered the murders. His loyal followers, Dominic Belleton, which was also his mistress and baby mama, Joel Egger, and Jerry and Colette Ganoid, carried out the plan. Dominique Belleton invited the Dutoit family to the house for a dinner on September 30th. When they arrived, Joel Egger and Jerry Ganoid were there, and they killed the couple and their baby. Nikki was stabbed 8 times in the back, 4 times in the throat, and once in each breast. Antonio had been beaten in the head with a blunt object. He was stabbed 50 times in the back, and his throat was slashed. Oh, this is sad, but the 3-month-old baby Christopher Emmanuel had been stabbed 6 times through the heart with a wooden stake, like some kind of spiritual ritual style. Like, as I said, the Mambro thought that this baby was the Antichrist, so they did this horrible. After the murders, Egger and Belleton left the house in the rental car of the Dutois, and this car was later found at the airport. Jerry and his wife Colette stayed at the house and tried to clean up the crime scene. 4 days later, they set off timers that made the fires start. They had taken sleeping pills before they set off the timers and laid down on the bed, wearing white robes. The plan was to burn down the whole house, but some of the timers didn't go off, so a part of the house was still standing. So the day after, Swiss authorities were called to a fire at a quiet property near the small village of Cherry. They thought it would be a normal fire to put out, but it turned out to be one of the most shocking mass death scenes in Europe's history. The fire was in a small building on the property, a controlled fire that the firefighters quickly put out, but the real horror was inside the main house, which was a farmhouse used secretly by the Order of the Solar Temple members. When the police went inside, they saw a terrible sight. 23 bodies spread around different rooms and hallways. The deaths showed clear signs of brutal violence and careful planning as part of a ritual. Some victims had been tied up with plastic bags over their heads. Others showed evidence of lethal injections or had been shot or stabbed. Several were found laying in ritualistic formations. The people found in Sherry were wearing different kind of clothes. Some wore white ceremonial robes, which showed that they were most likely a part of the ritual. But a lot of them also wore normal clothes, suggesting that they didn't know what was going to happen or didn't agree with it. Because of this, investigators believed that not everyone died by suicide. Many were probably murdered by a small group of loyal followers who were carrying out the final ritual. The house had also been changed to fit the plan. It had hidden passageways and special triggers, including timed devices to start the fires, just as the one in Canada. These were meant to destroy evidence and make the deaths look like a symbolic ritual. It became clear that this was no spontaneous tragedy. The scene here was a part of a coordinated, premeditated ritual. The next day there was another fire, this time in Grand-sur-Solvan, in the canton of Valley, about 150 kilometers away. I'm not sure how many miles that is, like half of it, 80, I'm not sure. At first it looked like just another fire, but when firefighters looked through the burned remains, they found something shocking. A hidden trap door that led to the underground room. Inside the room they found 25 dead bodies, carefully arranged in a symbolic pattern. Most of the people were wearing white ceremonial robes, showing that the deaths were part of the ritual. Some had plastic bags over their head, and others had been drugged with sleeping medicine. Autopsies later showed that some had chosen to die, but others had been murdered. The room was filled with ritual objects, chalices, solar imagery, and documents tied to the teachings of the Order of the Solar Temple. It became clear that this was not a suicide pact. It was carefully planned and executed ritual mass that. Among the deaths were the leaders, Joseph de Mambro and Luc Jouret. Investigators found that the fire-starting devices had been set up in the chalet because on the morning of December 16th, 1995, a year later, 16 members of the Order of the Solar Temple died in a mass murder-suicide in a forest clearing near the village of Saint-Pierre-de-Chernay in the Vercors Mountains of France. 2 members of the group, Jean-Pierre Lardanger and André Friedli, killed 14 others, including 3 children, then set their bodies on fire and killed themselves. They believed this would help them begin a spiritual journey to the star Sirius, something that they called a transit, just like in the earlier mass deaths. Most likely the victims were drugged before they were shot. Lardanger even killed his own children. After the killings, the 2 men set the scene on fire and took their own lives. Some of the people who died probably didn't even know about the plan and didn't agree with it, but others did, and they left behind notes explaining that they wanted to die as a part of the ritual. The bodies were found a week later after family members started to report them as missing. According to the police, the group got out of their cars and walked into the nearby forest. They had to walk more than 1.5 kilometers, like a mile, through steep and rough terrain in very cold weather. With them were 3 young children aged 6, 4, and 2, along with 13 adults. They eventually reached a small clearing in the forest and went down in a natural hollow or dip in the ground. This spot deep in the mountains is hard to reach. Was called Serre du Beach. Close to it was a place with a frightened name. Puits de l'Enfer or Trou de l'Enfer, not sure if I pronounce it, which means well of hell or hell. It was about 3,900 feet above the river and inside a protected forest area. Once there, they sat in a circle around a fire, took sedative drugs, and became unconscious. While the group lay on their backs, Jean-Pierre Lardanger and André Friedli shot and killed them. 2 of the mothers may have tried to protect their children because both women had been hit on the head with a heavy object before they were killed. Their skulls were broken. Can you imagine? No. Oh my God. Each child was shot once in the forehead. The adults were each killed by a close-range shot. One victim had 3 bullets in the heart, and another, Patrick Roston, was the only person who was shot with 2 different weapons. And I don't know the reason. After the killings, they poured gasoline over their bodies and set them on fire. They shot themselves in the head with a Mandarin 357 Magnum, which is a type of police gun. Friedley's body fell into the fire while Ardenshea fell face down on the ground. The 14 bodies were arranged in the shape of a star or sunburst, lying in a circle. The other 2 bodies of Ardenshea and Friedley were found nearby. The people in the star formation had their heads pointing outward and plastic bags over their heads. The bodies were badly burned. Near the bodies, police found several items, including medicine, flashlight, and guns. These included 2 .22 rifles and 2 9mm pistols, one of them with a silencer. These pistols were police weapons. So, wealthy people and also people of higher powers like police, men and women were involved in this society. I think that's even more frightening. On March 22 in 1997, 2 years later, 5 members of the Order of the Solar Temple died by mass suicide in St. Casimir, Quebec, Canada. They set their house on fire while they were still inside. Among them were 2 couples, DJ and Chantal Quez, and Bruno Klaus and Pauline, along with Chantal's mother, Suzanne. At first, the couple had planned for their 3 children to die with them, but after the first suicide attempt failed, the children spoke to their parents and said they wanted to live. Their parents agreed to let them go. Wow, luckily, 2 more failed attempts followed. Finally, on the last attempt, the plan worked, and this time the children helped to set it up, even though they didn't die themselves. This suicide in 1997 came after 2 earlier mass suicides by the group. The Order of the Solar Temple believed that by dying through suicide, members wouldn't really die, but instead transit to another world. They saw this transit as a ritual involving magical fire, which would send their spirits on a journey to the star Sirius, where they thought they would continue to live in a higher state. So the leaders and founders had already died in 1994, but still mass suicides continued. After these events, many believed that the group had ended and it was officially banned in Quebec. However, it is thought that some members continued their activities in secret. So, as I said, the suicide of the two couples and the mother in 1997. So, they carried out the suicide and they had sent suicide letters to two Canadian news outlets explaining why they were doing it. So, they drugged their children and tried to set the house on fire, but they had a couple of failed attempts with problems of the fire and because the children stopped them. So eventually it did work and they died from smoke inhalation, and a fifth was suffocated by someone else. Even though the children were involved, they were not charged with any crime. The Justice Ministry said this was because the children had taken drugs and were influenced by the cult. After this event, most people believed that the order of the solar temple had ended, and this case caused a lot of media attention and discussion in Quebec, especially about religious freedom. In January 1998, police in Spain stopped a planned mass suicide of about 30 people in Madrid. The group believed that the world was ending and that they would be reborn on a place called Sirius by traveling there on a spaceship. The leader, a German psychologist, was arrested for encouraging people to kill themselves. Police had been watching the group and stopped the tragedy from happening. The story of the Order of the Solar Temple is not just a sad event, it shows how dangerous it can be when people blindly follow a leader with strong control. In just a few years, 74 people died in Switzerland, France, and Canada because of this twisted spiritual beliefs. What started as a secret group promising spiritual wisdom ended in fire, death, and silence. So today, the Order of the Solar Temple does not exist anymore, as far as we know. But the mind control and tricks they used are still seen in other groups around the world and in cults. So that was the case of today. A lot of mass murders and suicides, and whoa, like me as an outsider, like I'm not really religious. I used to be as a kid, but when I got older, I was like, yeah, I don't have a lot of connection with it, or I don't take anything of it. I think it's a beautiful thing that people can have faith and trust and love and comfort and everything out of a religious belief. Like, I think that is beautiful. But me myself, I am not analysis and cancer. Like, so many people are going through that, and it's so hard. And you could say, like, in some religions they say that it's a how do they say that, like it's like a test or something to see if you can go through that as a person, and then when you die you get to like that higher state, you know. I don't know the ins and outs, but yeah, as I said before, why is there so much pain and war and all those bad things happening if there really was a higher power, like someone who created all of us in the world? Wouldn't he, she, it step in eventually, you know? Like a child that is born and is so pure and innocent, why does that child get to be sick? Like, it didn't do. Yeah, you know, I just think that is like a thing that. But if you do believe in a God, that is great for you. But me personally, I just don't believe in it. And like, I have seen a documentary once about the story of like Jesus, but it is like the months, like the 12 months with the sun, you know. And then I saw that documentary and I was like, whoa, yeah, whoa. And after that, like, my spiritual religion path changed a bit, and from then on I am an atheist, right? If you don't believe in anything. It all happened after that documentary. And yeah, so personally, I don't believe that there. I do believe that there is something after life, like reincarnation. Yeah, I believe that. And that your spirit goes somewhere. I'm not sure, but I do believe in those things. And that there are people who can communicate with spirits and everything. Yeah, I do believe in that, but like, to say that there really is a God, yeah, I'm not sure. But as I said, if you believe in that, you go for it, and I hope that that brings you comfort. But referring to this case, like in a cult, as I said, if you have like these highly persuasive people that can talk, I get that you are interested in that and believe in the things that are being said and just go on with it, and that you can be so brainwashed as that you are involved in a mass death, and you don't have to be like dumb, you know. You can have like, you can be very intelligent and go along with it. Like, yeah, I don't believe that there is a shame in that or anything. Like, but yeah, so this happened in this case with a cult and highly persuasive people and the ideas of a higher spiritual ritual and thing leading to war. And that led to these deaths, but not all people were interested in these suicides. So these were people murdered, and that is just so sad. So please let me think. Let me know what you think about this, like about cults and these mass deaths, and maybe even about religion. What do you think about that? And for now, I wanna thank you so much for watching and listening.